What's up guys, Jimmy here, and today I want to talk about Season 4 Ryu. We got the patch notes, so let's talk about every single change first, and then I'm going to give you guys my opinion on how good Ryu really is in Season 4 and what to expect in general. So let's kick it off with standing medium kick. They changed the damage from 60 to 70, not a big change. This is not going to make Ryu viable, but it's good to see Capcom acknowledging that this move in particular needed some work. I really like the fact that every single button of Ryu has a use case, and I feel like standing medium kick is one of those tools that you'll rarely use, simply because it's a little bit underwhelming, and this change is certainly gonna help. Next up, the crouching medium kick. Advantage on hit increased from +1 to +2. Now, unfortunately the patch notes don't really specify how they achieve this effect, but after some investigation, I think they just increased the hit stun of the opponent, which is good because this actually helps with combo ability afterwards. A lot of people have complained about crouching medium kick not properly comboing into a fireball in previous versions of the game, and now this is actually more consistent now because you get one additional frame to combo into fireball, and on top of that the fireball got changed as well to make this even more lenient. It still doesn't combo from every range, but it's much more consistent now. Next up, the change to Ryu's sweep, his crouching hard kick. This one is actually universal, so they added some V-gauge to crush counters. So if you get a crush counter, instead of 100 V-gauge gain, you get 120. Not a big change, and it is universal, so you can't really say this is a buff for Ryu. Everyone got that change as far as I can tell. So let's talk about the first major change that Ryu received in Season 4, and that's with his fireball game. So the patch notes say decrease the overall movement frames from 47 frames to 45 frames. And this is a horrible way to put it. I looked it up. They mean they cut the last 2 recovery frames, so you recover 2 frames quicker on every single fireball, which is a really nice change because it means that you cannot get jumped in as easily as you used to before. So every time you throw a fireball, it's less risky to do so now. And you can even increase the frequency of the fireball shots because of it, right? Because you recover 2 frames quicker, you essentially get to do the next fireballs also 2 frames quicker. So that's pretty nice. It's going to be much more difficult to jump in on Ryu when you throw a fireball. It's not impossible, and it's very similar actually, but still, the gap is a little bit tighter, and that really does make a difference. They also increased the pushback on block, which is also very nice because you're slowly gonna gain ground when you throw a fireball, which is a big deal. So that's also a very good change for Ryu. So now let's take a look at specific fireballs. So the light fireball got slower, reduced the projectile speed, that's what it says. And you might think, I'm not quite sure, but I feel like a casual player might think this is actually a nerf because you can see the fireball coming more easily, but this is actually a big buff. You want the slow fireball to be as slow as possible. The slower the fireball is, the better it is actually, because you can kind of use it as a shield to get in. If you're like full screen away with Ryu, throwing a light fireball is actually a big deal. You throw it, you dash up behind the fireball essentially, and your opponent has no choice but to do something unsafe or block the fireball and give you an advantage. So that's a really good change. On the other side of the fireball spectrum, we have the heavy fireball being faster. This is also obviously a buff, a very nice buff as well. As I said, you want the slow fireball to be as slow as possible, and you want the heavy fireball, the fast fireball, to be as fast as possible. So this is a very welcome change, and this in particular, as I said earlier, will help with crouching medium kick into fireball comboing properly. So a nice change. So next up we have a change for Ryu's EX Tatsu. I thought his EX Tatsu was actually pretty good already, so I didn't expect this one, but it's even better now. So the patch notes say slightly decrease the blowback distance on hit and increase the blowback time for grounded hit. So essentially you get better Oki off of a successful EX Tatsu. If you land that, you can safely double dash and pressure afterwards. This was not the case before because the opponent just simply wasn't in range for you to pressure afterwards. They got knocked back very, very far, way too far for you to apply any pressure. So this is a very nice change, and it makes it very difficult to judge whether you should be going for an EX Fireball when you have a successful combo or EX Tatsu. I still need to do some tests on this. So now let's talk about the second big change for Ryu's gameplay in Season 4, and that's with the donkey kick. The donkey kick was changed in a lot of different ways that make it a much better tool overall. The most obvious change is with the motion itself. It used to be a quarter circle forward kick move, and now it's a half circle forward kick move. At first this might seem like a nerf because it's slightly more difficult to activate, but it's actually intended as a buff. High level Ryu players used to trigger light kick into super as a buffer, and the way you would do it is by doing a quarter circle forward light kick into a quarter circle forward punch. And the idea is essentially hide the super input and only have it activate if you get a crazy whiff punish with a light kick or if your opponent happens to dash in or something like that. And unfortunately, with the introduction of the donkey kick, this buffer actually got destroyed because you couldn't do a quarter circle forward light kick without activating a light donkey kick. So now let's talk about the individual changes to all versions of the donkey kick, kicking it off with the light donkey kick. They reduced the startup frames from 16 to 10, which is a major buff because you can now combo light attacks into the light donkey kick. I've been trying to figure out how to use this one properly now. I've been trying to get light kick into light donkey kick to work as a buffer mid-screen, and sometimes it does, and some other times you just whiff the light donkey kick if you buffer it from too far away. So there's definitely a lot of stuff I still need to test with this, but it does give Ryu a very interesting and new option to gain an advantage from the footsie battle. So here are the changes for the medium donkey kick, and this might actually be the only donkey kick that we will not see in Season 4, because I can't see a use case for this anymore. It actually used to be the best one probably, because you used to be able to combo from medium punches into the medium donkey kick. The EX was not even an option because it would whiff a lot of the times, so medium donkey kick used to be the way to go if you're comboing from a medium punch and your opponent isn't that close. It was the only safe option back then. And now they buffed it significantly, but it's still useless because of how much better the other donkey kick options are. But let's take a look anyways, okay? So they reduced the startup frames from 18 to 16, and they increased the attack movement distance. Both are great changes, but once again, the other donkey kicks are even better than this, and I just fail to see why you would use medium donkey kick when heavy donkey kick, for example, has the same combo ability but even better range. So let's talk about heavy donkey kick now. So the only change for the heavy donkey kick is putting it from 20 frames of startup to 18 frames, which doesn't seem like a big change, but it is because you can now combo medium punches into the heavy donkey kick. And that is really something I wasn't aware of. This is something I want to test out specifically on stream the next couple of days. I want to do medium punch, which is an excellent tool in the footsie battle, buffered into the heavy donkey kick. And because of the crazy range of the heavy donkey kick, it has the best range by far. It's probably going to be an insane buffer tool for Ryu that I was not aware of. I really thought the highlight for the donkey kick was light kick into light donkey kick, but medium punch into heavy donkey kick might even be better. So this is something I definitely want to test out. And for the EX donkey kick, they increased the range of the attack, so it has very similar range to the medium donkey kick, which has excellent range. So this is a really good change because it used to whiff a lot in combos, very frustrating back then. Now it should be much more reliable, and it might even be worth testing it as a buffer. I also didn't really think about this, but if you're buffering from a medium punch mid-screen, it might work just fine to do EX donkey kick as a buffer into more damage with a Shoryuken at the end. This might be a very powerful tool that I'm currently not even utilizing at all, so I should test it out within the next couple of streams. So the last thing I want to talk about today is Ryu's new V-Trigger 2 parry properties. A lot of people are saying that it's better than V-Trigger 1 now and it's really worth using. Let's review the patch notes and then I'll give you guys my take on the whole situation. So first up, we have recovery reduced from 40 frames to 36 frames. This is a good change. You're less likely to get severely punished when you whiff a parry, but at the same time, the V-skill parry is even more safe than this, And once you activate V-Trigger 2, people are looking for a whiffed parry. So I don't really see how this is a great change. I think either way you are gonna get crush countered if you whiff a parry in front of your opponent. So the second change reads as follows: the attack recovery can be cancelled into Shoryuken. And I was super excited when I read that because I thought you can cancel the recovery frames of a whiff parry into Shoryuken, and that would have been awesome because it essentially turns a whiff parry into another 50-50 gamble, because your opponent, if they attempt to punish you, you can punish their punish attempt with a Shoryuken. Would have been hilarious, and honestly I would still love to see this change because it would turn the parry into a really useful tool. Essentially it would give you two 50-50s in a row that you can get, turning the parry into a 75% win or success chance with the recovery 50-50 gamble. And I would have loved to see that. Unfortunately, that's actually not the case. What they mean by this is if you successfully parry with the V-Trigger 2, you can cancel the recovery of the parry into a Shoryuken. The reason why they want to do that is because it is ridiculously difficult to combo a successful parry into a Shoryuken. It's actually really difficult, and I messed it up quite a lot when getting the parry. Very frustrating, and now it's much more easy to do. So here's another change that people are completely misunderstanding. It says if Ryu successfully parries an attack but his counterattack misses, he can cancel the recovery into Mind's Eye or Isshin. Isshin is his V-Trigger 2 parry. And then it says, note, when cancelled into from recovery, the parry startup will be 1 frame. I think this note in particular is weirdly worded, so much that people are misinterpreting what it actually is supposed to mean. It does not mean you can cancel the whiffed parry into another one with 1 frame startup. That is not at all what it says. You have to get a successful V-Trigger 2 parry, and the counterattack has to not trigger. The only way this is possible is if you're parrying a multi-hitting move that is invincible, like Ken's EX Shoryuken, for example. If you're parrying that on the first hit, then now what you can do now is you can follow up with more parries. And it feels more like a bug fix than anything else. I wouldn't really call this a buff. You have to be in a really weird situation in order for this to trigger, and yeah. It's really not a big deal. It just makes it so that you can actually parry multiple hits. So yeah, it's a bug fix, nothing more, and people should not be freaking out. If you do a V-skill with Ryu right now, or this has always been the case, if you parry a move with the V-skill and you cancel into a second parry, the second parry always had 1 frame startup. This is nothing special. This has always existed with the V-skill, and it's honestly odd they didn't include it right away with the V-Trigger 2 parry. So far the changes for V-Trigger 2 have been very minor, and they don't really impact Ryu's gameplay that much, but there's one more change that we need to talk about that does change the gameplay quite a bit, and that's with the standing heart punch. This one is special cancelable now in V-Trigger 2 mode, and it's a property that I'm really not sure about. At first I underestimated this property, and then I thought about it. I was like, wait a minute, if you activate V-Trigger 2, you actually get infinite cancels from standing heart punch. It's a property that Ryu has in V-Trigger 1, but you can rarely use it because you're in V-Trigger 1 mode for like 5 seconds before you run out. That does not happen in V-Trigger 2. That makes the cancel property much more useful in V-Trigger 2, and that's why I thought, hey, this might actually be the way to go. You go for V-Trigger 2, you activate early, and you never parry, you just use the V-Trigger 2 state to get the standing heart punch cancel. And the more I used it recently, the more I felt like this property was lacking. It's not really as useful as I expected it to be. So I went from underestimating V-Trigger 2 to overestimating V-Trigger 2, and now it feels underwhelming again because I realized the standing heart punch cancel is not as good as I want it to be. So I'm not really sure on this one. A lot of people, as I said, think V-Trigger 2 is the way to go now, but the more I use it, the more I realize it's the same tool. It's the same tool and the Heart Punch cancel isn't as good as I would have wanted it to be. That's my impression at the moment, and I'm sure I'm gonna make another video on V-Trigger 2 because I'm using it a lot more recently and I want to get a better understanding of how I can use these new properties in a way that leads to victory, because at the moment I think I've never actually had Standing Heart Punch cancelled into anything make a difference in a match so far, so that's pretty underwhelming, unfortunately. So those are the changes for Ryu in Season 4, and in my opinion there are two major changes that they made, and those changes are with the fireballs and the donkey kick. And nothing more, to be honest. Initially I said there are three major changes: fireball, donkey kick, and V-Trigger 2, but I really want to retract the last statement. I don't think the V-Trigger 2 is actually that much better. At least my impression so far is that the Heart Punch cancel doesn't really add enough to justify being a major game changer. I really don't think I think it's the same tool. V-Trigger 2 is very inconsistent. Sometimes it leads to crazy wins, and other times it just leads to a loss that was specifically triggered by you trying to get the parry. And that's underwhelming. That's still not good enough for competitive play in my opinion, but the fireball and donkey kick changes are really, really nice. So is Ryu viable in Season 4? To be honest, the changes that he received are really good. They're the best changes that he ever received since he got nerfed in Season 2. So it's a good step up. The question is, how much of a step up is it, and is it good enough to make him tournament viable? And I think for us to answer that question, we really need to see what the other characters can do. I've noticed that playing against characters like Birdie is still as frustrating. I just can't beat Birdie with Ryu because he still loses the neutral game so badly. Even with the changes, they don't really make a big difference because Birdie is gonna win the footsie battle against Ryu, and he still has really nice tools against fireballs. But there is a lot of room for improvement for my gameplay, to be honest. It's not like I've completely switched over to Season 4 Ryu. I'm still in the process of discovering what you can do with the slow fireballs, with the new buffers. Stuff like that really matters, and it's gonna take time to get used to that. But yeah, this is my impression. I feel like Ryu still has these really, really bad matchups, and if these characters end up on top of the tier list, then Ryu is just not going to see tournament play because he can't beat those characters, right? This is essentially how it's going to work. And this is why I always say you can't really judge viability unless you have a really good and clean picture of the tier list. And nobody really knows that at the moment. We just don't know how strong the other characters are. So yeah guys, those are my thoughts on Season 4 Ryu. I think there are a lot of reasons to be optimistic about Season 4 Ryu, and we might actually see him back in tournament play. But this, as I said, depends on the other characters. So yeah, let me know what you think about Season 4 Ryu. Is he viable now? Is he really strong now? I've never really seen anyone try to argue that, but maybe he is. Maybe he's actually gonna be top tier again. I doubt it personally, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. So guys, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.